Chapter 357. A Muslim Girl in the West, Section 10. The Greek police released Dr. Ibtihal after all those people who planned and participated on that cowardly attacks on the city were brought to justice. Even those who lied in order to cover up the terrorists were detained. Among the former 5 suspects, only Dr. Ibtihal was released. Dr. Ibtihal enjoyed her freedom for 24 hours only before she was rearrested again with the charge of illegally entering the country. She spent those 24 hours with Jennifer Jackson in her room in the hotel. The Greek police wanted the court to deport Dr. Ibtihal to the country of her origin. Her trial was scheduled to take place soon. Jennifer was so troubled when she learned that the Greek police had a legal reason against Dr. Ibtihal. She came into Greece with a fake visa. The court for sure would order her deportation. For Dr. Ibtihal to be deported to Sudan would mean to be sent back to her death. Jennifer sought the help of the Human Rights Center in Athens, but it was powerless in this case. She consulted the FBI team, but she had been told they could do nothing. Finally she returned to Dr. Ibtihal's lawyer. The lawyer did not give her any promise, but he said he would request the court to keep Dr. Ibtihal in Greece on humanitarian basis. The lawyer said further that he would plead with the court to keep his defendant for her protection. In that case he had to convince the court by supplying strong evidences that Dr. Ibtihal's life would be in high risk if she were sent to Sudan. While Jennifer was running from office to office trying to save the life of Dr. Ibtihal, she got the disturbing news that Dr. Samir was shot and seriously wounded during an attempt to kidnap him by some Sudanese military soldiers. He was in critical condition when Jennifer received the news. In spite of that, Jennifer decided to stay behind and continue to fight the case of Dr. Ibtihal. She thought it would have been better if Dr. Samir and her left Dr. Ibtihal to spend the rest of her life in the Athenian prison than sending her back to the Sudanese gallows. Jennifer visited Dr. Ibtihal regularly in jail. She did not tell her anything about the condition of her lover. The Human Rights Center promised to cover all the fees of the lawyer and any other legal charges that might be involved. Some disturbing rumor reached the Human Rights Center and passed on quickly to the lawyer and Jennifer, that the Greek police contacted the Sudanese embassy in Athens and requested them to cover the airfare for deporting Dr. Ibtihal. The Sudanese embassy agreed to cover all the expenses of sending her back to Khartoum. The lawyer approached the police department and inquired about the rumor. The police authority denied that they made such a deal with the Sudanese embassy. The trial took place in a small court hall and attended by few people compared to the previous 2 hearings. The Athenian police requested the court to deport Dr. Ibtihal on the ground that she entered Greece on a false visa. The judge invited the lawyer to present his defense. Your Honor, the judge and the revered jury, I would like to seek the help of the Greek government to grant my defendant a permission to remain in the country on humanitarian basis and for protection purpose. As the court must be aware that my defendant had recently helped the Athenian police to unearth one of the most vicious and cowardly terrorist attacks that ever happened in Greece. Instead of rewarding a person like that, our Athenian police wanted her to be deported back to her country of origin. The Greek police possessed all the evidences that pointing to the bitter fact that my defendant would go directly to the gallows if she is sent to Sudan. A Sudanese Islamic court had condemned my defendant to death for changing her religion from Islam to Christianity. This right is fully granted to every citizen in all civilized societies except in a Muslim country. Now how can we call ourselves the defenders of human rights if we bow before such a draconian law as the Sharia law and send innocent young women to those fanatic religious leaders to slaughter her? Are they not the same like-minded fanatic religious leaders who plotted against us and massacred in one single day thousands of innocent Athenians for no reason except that they were not following the same beliefs and code of ethics? Are they not the same fanatic murderers who slaughtered thousands of innocent people in New York, London, Spain, and finally in our own soil? Your Honor, the judge, it would be stigma on the Greek face if we send this girl back to her country with full knowledge that she would be killed. On the basis of human and ethical principles that we Greeks share with the whole civilized world, which hold fast to the Charter of Human Rights, I request the court to pardon my defendant for entering illegally in Greece. We Greek people can understand the reason that led such a young successful medical doctor as my defendant to flee out of her country and came here to our land to seek our protection from those draconian laws that condemned her to the death penalty for changing her religion. One of the most fundamental articles of the Charter of Human Rights is that every person has the right to adopt whatever form of belief he wishes. I would like to remind this revered court that we Greek people had produced to the world the fundamentals of democracy and human rights. We produced the fathers of Western civilization, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. 2,500 years ago stood Socrates in this city before a group of fanatic leaders, and they condemned him to death because his opinions were different from theirs. Today, after 25 centuries, those same fanatic leaders are murdering innocent people because their faith is different from theirs. Your Honor the judge and the revered jury, I would like to repeat again that how can we call ourselves the defenders of human rights, if we agree to bow before such a barbaric law as the Islamic law of apostasy and send an innocent young woman to those fanatic religious leaders to be slaughtered by them because she chose to forsake Islam and adopt Christianity? Thank Your Honor the judge, thank you the revered jury. I trust our Greek court to pass a fair judgment on my defendant. Before the judge passed his sentence, he consulted his jury. Then, he said, this court rules that Ibtihal Osman Taha should not be deported to Sudan or any other country. Some of the narrators chose to end their narrations as soon as Dr. Ibtihal had been smuggled out of Sudan. They preferred to keep her story confined within the borders of her motherland. But, none of them could claim that he wrote a biography of her life. I believe that the events of her life overseas were part and parcel of her life in Sudan. What was going to take place in this chapter would prove without shadow of doubt that all the events of her life were part of the same. From the previous chapter we learned that the Athenian court had rejected the demand of the Athenian police to deport Dr. Ibtihal out of Greece. Nevertheless, not everybody was happy about that decision. The legal advisor of Sudanese embassy lodged a complaint against the ruling of the Athenian court. In his complaint he demanded that Dr. Ibtihal should be deported to Sudan because she was involved in a murder crime. This complaint was submitted to the Athenian criminal court. As soon as the criminal court received the lawsuit, it appointed a date for the hearing. Some information, which some narrators excluded, and I would like to mention before the fourth hearing. The Athenian court refused to allow the legal advisor of the Sudanese embassy to represent the case because it did not recognize his qualifications. This matter created some difficulties for the Sudanese embassy. Every Greek lawyer that the Sudanese embassy approached refused to accept the case. Finally, a Greek lawyer who was originally emigrated from Syria accepted the case. Another information that also of importance was the arrangement that the Greek government made with the UN office in Athens regarding Dr. Ibtihal. The UN office granted her a refugee status in Greece. The UN office also agreed to cover the expenses of her staying in Athens. Moreover, the office granted her a legal aid and appointed a lawyer to defend her at court. Although the fourth hearing had nothing to do with the terrorists' attacks on Athens, still I preferred to number it in that fashion in order to avoid any confusion. The Sudanese embassy's lawyer was asked by the court to represent his case first. Bism Allah al-Rahman al-Rahim, began the lawyer, here in my hand a copy of the magazine that published the confessions of the lover of this woman. The US FBI team that interviewed him in Chad had obtained these confessions from him. In the interview, the lover confessed that he hired some gunmen to rescue his girlfriend from being hanged in Khartoum. According to the report of the Khartoum police, that those gunmen murdered 9 policemen and 4 female jailers before they kidnapped this woman from their hands. Those same gunmen broke into the house of the judge who condemned this woman to death and kidnapped him. On the same day, 4 women from the same gang disguised themselves as jailers and publicly hanged the judge. Here is the report of the Khartoum police regarding all the details of those hideous crimes that committed by the gunmen who were hired by this woman and her lover in Khartoum. Then, the lawyer took a dossier as bigger as his head and handed over to the judge. Based on those indisputable evidences, the Sudanese embassy requests the court to send this woman to Sudan to face the consequences of the ugly crimes that committed by those gangsters that she and her lover had hired. The lawyer neither greeted nor thanked the judge and the jury nor showed any respect to the court. After he made his dry speech, returned to his former position and sat. The defense lawyer was requested by the court to represent his case. Your Honor, the judge and revered jury, began Dr. Ibtihal's lawyer, we have heard the charges that the lawyer of the Sudan embassy had brought against my defendant. We also heard the evidences that he supplied in order to support his case. The lawyer did not prove to the court how my defendant guilty of murder crime as the charges stated. If her lover had admitted that he hired some gunman to rescue his beloved, that was not a proof that my defendant involved in a murder crime. Let the lawyer show us the connection between the gunman and my defendant. Let the lawyer show us the deal that my defendant made with those gunmen. The US FBI's interview revealed that the lover of my defendant admitted that he sought the help of a great influential man in Khartoum in order to rescue his beloved from being unjustly put to death by an Islamic court. The interview never mentioned gunman or gang or any criminal. Objection, shouted the other lawyer. Objection sustained, said the judge. This woman herself admitted in one of her interrogations that she had been rescued and kidnapped by some gunman in Khartoum while she was on her way to the gallows. I am certain, said the defense lawyer smiling, that the court is fully aware of that confession. I think my colleague misunderstood my statement when I said the FBI's interview never mentioned gunman or gang or any criminal. What I meant to say is that the lover of my defendant did not mention in the interview that he hired gunman or gang. He just said he had been left with no choice, so he sought the help of a great influential man in Sudan. That great influential man might be a politician, businessman, military general, police commissioner, or even the president of Sudan. Objection, shouted the lawyer again. Objection overruled, said the judge. Thank your honor, said the defense lawyer and bowed his head to the judge. That great influential man might have sought the help of some gunman to rescue my defendant. Who knows that those gunmen might be policemen or military soldiers? On which ground can we conclude that those gunmen were gang members? Can the lawyer give us some evidences that the Khartoum police arrested some of those people and they confessed that they were gang members? Even if the lawyer can provide the court with such evidences, that cannot be used against my defendant. Objection, shouted the Syrian lawyer. Objection overruled again. I don't see any other reason that led the Sudanese embassy to demand that the criminal court in Greece should send my defendant back to Sudan except one. Based on a barbaric and draconian law in Sudan called the Sharia law of apostasy, my defendant was considered to have committed a treason by forsaking Islam and embracing Christianity. Objection, 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 shouted the other lawyer. Objection sustained. The defense lawyer must mind his language and he must respect other religions. Your Honor, I don't believe that I have insulted any religion by calling that inhumane law of apostasy a barbaric and draconian law. We Muslims are not barbarians, but you Christians are barbarians. You wiped the Red Indians out of existence, you dropped 2 nuclear weapons on Japan, you sent the Crusaders to slaughter us, you killed 1.5 million Iraqis, you... Order, 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 shouted the judge. The court is not a place of debate between Christians and Muslims. Any further personal attack, the court would dismiss the case. I have been personally insulted and attacked by the defense lawyer. I demand an apology from the defense lawyer. The court asks the defense lawyer to continue, said the judge. I withdraw, shouted the angry lawyer. I can't stand before a court which has no respect for other religions. When he made those angry remarks, the Muslim lawyer collected his papers and walked out of the court. Has the defense lawyer anything more to say? Asked the judge. Your Honor, the judge and the revered jury, the Sudanese embassy hid its real motive and came up with the murder accusation. Its real motive is to get my defendant returned to Sudan to face the death penalty. What can we call a law that in the 21st century orders the killing of a person because he changed his religion? I believe every person in this court will agree with me that law can be called nothing today except inhumane, barbaric, draconian, and against the human rights and against humanity itself. The defense lawyer paused for a few seconds before he said, "That is all, Your Honor." Based on lack of evidences, this court dismisses the case and rejects the demand of the Sudanese embassy, said the judge.